let's get something straight right off the bat. America did not become poor. We became cheap, and cheap in the worst possible way. But I don't mean cheap with money. Listen to me. So I think America has become cheap in the worst possible way. We've become spiritually tacky. We've become annoying to the rest of the world, morally underfed, right? And that's a huge part of this. Think of America as a country with granite countertops, let's say, leased trucks. We all have them, right? Giant mortgages. A lot of us have them. Casino style politics. That's always at play in the mix there. You have, what else? Facebook theology is out there, right? Um, like I said, and you have the emotional maturity of a man who yells at a little league umpire after 5 seltzer waters. That's what I call cheap, morally cheap. That's not broke, that's splintered. So the reality of this is that America used to have class distinctions, right? There were differences between the very obvious things in class, but Americans were still somewhat grounded back in the day. I think, and that's where people are thinking that we're broken, and I don't think that we're necessarily broken. But we had farmers, we had working class, we had poor folks, who lived in the trailer parks. We had richer people in the towns, right? This is just where these people came from. It's where their lives were. It's how things worked. But people had problems, but they also had some shared sense of decency, of limits, of restraint. Maybe even they had some idea of forward motion. And when I say that America's become cheap, this is the stuff that we've seemed to have lost. And when I get out and talk to people, when I go and I'm doing research for my books and stuff, this is what I'm learning from people when I go out and meet with people. And it seems to be there's still a significant section of society that still believes this and is kind of kicking back against these pricks. A phrase that I've heard creep up in conversation every day or every so often more recently is rich white trash. And that's just not about money. Okay. I mean, you can be a white trash person and have money. Okay. Was it Toby Keith that used to kind of brand himself as being white trash with money? I think you look at somebody like Kid Rock, that's pure white trash. At least he acts like pure white trash because that's the market he's trying to attract. He may not be, but he appears that way anyway. And I think that there's probably today a certain vulgarity within American society that's resentful, it's greedy, it doesn't trust anything, maybe it's racist, maybe it's anti-intellectual, anybody that can think, they're performatively religious. They have this mindset that religion is a performance. That was once a lot of people, I think, associated with the white trash people of America. And that somehow white trash mentality migrated up into the middle class. It's like, they say you can't make a whore a housewife. Well, can you make white trash middle class? Can you make white trash upper class? Maybe you can. You can try to put lipstick on the pig, look at JD Vance, and I probably come from white trash. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think America has become a country where people have education, but they don't have any wisdom. Okay. And I want you to think about that. Like what do they say? Wisdom, no, what is it? Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put tomato in a fruit salad. It's kind of, you follow the drift here. And Americans tend to have this education without knowledge, without wisdom. Perhaps they have money but no class anymore, right? Maybe they have religion but no morals. I mean, we're seeing that play out right now in the Texas Senate race, with the Republican nominee claiming to be a very religious man, but absolutely no morals whatsoever. Donald Trump claiming to be a very religious man, absolutely no morals whatsoever. But these people are using this to convince the weak-minded white trash that they are the end all be all, that they're the savior of the world, right? And so I think the white trash has become kind of the symbol of, maybe it always was, right? The symbol of social decay in the world, right? Bad taste, low trust, loud resentment is another one, maybe debt, anger at systems, all this different stuff, right? Uh, how would you call it? Survival mode thinking, right? I think academics would use this as survival mode thinking because white trash are always kind of in this survival mode and they can't really get out of it. So, yeah, I don't know. But I think one of the interesting things here is that mentality used to only be at the margins, right? Like on the far margins. Now it's worked its way into middle class society where it was at one time a little more regulated, Um, it's kind of been thrown into the cable news, into YouTube, into the blogosphere, right? And it's been thrown into our gated communities, our small towns. Um, and used to, I think we were kind of working to get rid of that kind of moral decay in America. Now we're just kind of embracing it as being this normal thing. And I think politically we need to point the blame at a few things at once. I think there's this cult of infinite growth that's out there that's feeding into this thing, right? That's telling us that, we can have our cake and eat it too after being told for many years that you can't have your cake and eat it too. Now we're trying to prove that we can, you know? Uh, I think another thing is the hollowing out of the stable jobs. There are no real stable jobs anymore in America, if you really think about it. I know you had people like Mike Rowe and them, saying that the blue collar jobs back in the mid 2000s were going to save us. Those jobs aren't stable anymore. I mean, you could literally go into work one day and find your ass out on the street by lunch. Uh, so there is no stable job. And I think another thing that ties into that is the debt driven society that we live in. Americans are full of debt these days. I mean, they are debt heavy people. And there's everyone out there trying to get your money, every service out there trying to get your money, every company out there trying to get your money, everybody trying to hawk something new, I mean, I'm no different probably, I mean, we've got merch on the website, we've got the book. I mean, we're nowhere. I'm probably no different. But it's how we have to survive these days because the American economy maybe is a farce. Maybe it's a smokescreen because we've removed all of the stability from our society. I wrote an article the other day on Medium about the Muslim thing here in America, or at least in Texas, right? And I think racism and resentment is being weaponized by our politicians. We're seeing it more and more and more. I think the billionaires are trying to hoard more money for themselves because they're unsure of the American economy and where this thing is going. Um, And the billionaires, I think, are trying to keep Americans just comfortable enough to not revolt against them, right? Because they know if the white trash and that the fringes of society, right, get a voice, they're going to go berserk. They're going to revolt. They have done it before in different societies. Look at Ceausescu's Romania. And I've said this before. Donald Trump is like Nicolae Ceausescu 2.0. Okay? And the Republican Party is like Ceausescu's regime. Is that really what you want to be? I think AI has a big part of this too to play into it, you know? There's been this climate collapse. We've been hearing about this boom of AI. But if you think about AI, there's this, at one point during AI, there was this massive growth, right? This massive growth phase. Well, now with every update of AI, the improvements get narrower and narrower, right? So used to when there was an update with AI, it was like an explosion, right? Now each update is like a narrow little update. So I'm not sure what that says, but I think AI has a big part of that. And I think that the final point of this, after having this big conversation, is bleak as hell. So the billionaires are going to ride this machine until it breaks. Okay, it's just that simple. Uh, they're going to ride this machine till it breaks, and then they're going to leave. They're going to get on the horse and they're going to go. And then that's going to leave you and me to inherit the wreckage. I mean, we've seen this time and time again in places like Poland. We've seen it time and time again in Eastern Europe. This is nothing new. If you know history and you know sociology and you know the mechanics of how things work, history does repeat itself. This is no different. America has sold its moral inheritance for debt, for governance, for an overreaching set of laws that nobody knows how many are on the books anymore. I mean, Neil Gorsuch talks about this in his book, Overruled. Nobody knows anymore. And that's the scary thing, is that nobody has any clue to where we're going. And we've sold this out. We've sold our moral fabric out for debt, for laws, for grievances, for all sorts of things, luxury branding, you know, so we can feel good about the money that we're spending for a moment. We've sold all of this out. We didn't become the world's trailer park overnight. You know, we didn't become the world's trailer park because we were too poor. We became the world's trailer park because we were educated and had no knowledge. We became the world's trailer park because the rich started acting like the fringes of society. The rich used to be something to aspire to. Now nobody really wants to aspire to be like these people. You know, they've kind of become the people that they once looked down upon. So I know this is not a clean argument, but it's not an empty one either, right? I mean, if anything, this has been more of a lament about this whole situation. I don't think America is broken. I think we're splintered. I do. And perhaps a man looking around at a country full of big trucks, big debt, big mortgages, big everything, compared with, coupled with small minds and with dying jobs and decaying infrastructure and billionaire escape plans and all this other stuff, you know, and lunatics, you know, morally bankrupt people running for political office, politicians that are out there feeding raw meat to the fringes. That's the problem. That's where we've got to realize that America is sick. We're not broken. We're splintered. I'm Matt Pierce. Thanks for joining me. To learn more about what we're doing here and the projects that I'm working on, please visit my website, mattpierceblog.com. We'll see you soon.